Morning, everybody. Michelle is here. Michelle is here on a Monday, February the 2nd, 2026. I had a rough night's sleep because I possibly ate something that did not agree with my stomach. And let me tell you about the body, the power of the body. The body will detox for you when it feels that it was extremely necessary, apparently, last night. When I came in to be experiencing some issues, and naturally my body detoxed whatever it was, and I feel much better. So, and I have been feeling a little weird all week because this season prevents a lot. Has a lot of issues during this time of the year. With colds and flus and whatever is going around, and people everywhere, people sneezing without covering themselves, coughing without covering their mouths. There's just so much ignorance going on around certain things that you should have been taught in your adolescence, how to conduct yourself in public. You don't just cough when you see people standing around you. And if you pay attention, somebody's always standing around or sneezing and all that kind of stuff in public without covering yourself up. Have some consideration for others, please. I had to tell a guy, I guess about a week ago, he's just out near the door of how we get into this place, and he's just coughing and not covering himself, and just near the door of all places. And I yelled out to him. I said, "Can you at least cover your mouth when you're coughing?" But he couldn't understand me. He didn't speak English. But anyway, let's get on to what I've been talking about. This is should be video 17 regarding consequences. And I'm paying attention to what's going on everywhere. I pay attention, I monitor what's going on everywhere. More so in my own backyard, in my own environment, in my own space, as well as I pay attention to what's happening on these social media platforms, this joint effort to distract us, and this joint effort to more so confuse us. And it's working. It works. So though that criminal negative energy is getting a pat on the back, feeling encouraged, because yes, it's working. Whatever they're doing to create this rift of the biological man versus the biological woman, when you drill it down, separating politics, separating gender, separating identity, separating blah 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 blah, it boils down to the biological man versus the biological woman. Okay? And this need for biological men are doing this to be in control, to be the experts, to be the know-it-alls, and to be the ones controlling everything, attempting to control the woman by any means necessary. Okay? Growing up in our household, that sounds foreign to me. Okay, my mother and father were equally responsible for the development, of our realities, thus creating enough space for us to figure things out on our own, have some fantasies about things, delusions, misconceptions, self-educate ourselves. Okay, we had that environment, and as a matter of fact, that whole culture we grew up in had that structure. But of course, as I've said, I got plenty of videos, and there's plenty of evidence to prove those, more specifically, the Black American cultures or neighborhoods were intentionally infiltrated. Take the black man out the house so that he can be out on the front line fighting these wars that were visible wars and the secret wars. Indoctrinate them, give them medication, do whatever I told you I knew a Vietnam vet that told me that the kind of things that they were doing to him. Having him take this and take that, and they had to follow orders. But what's happening now? They're going to stop using humans because humans are, first of all, snapping out of it, and a lot of them are refusing to fight these wars. So they're going to use artificial intelligence instead, and that's working too. Okay, so these are consequences. Okay, so it's not so much about the genders, which are exposing consequences. I mean, it's a package. We are a package, literally, figuratively, and metaphorically. Whereas, we are. I told you to think of that metaphor of a large balloon. Think of Earth, and inside that balloon is just smaller balloons, medium, large, and small balloons. Whereas each one is attempting to grab whoever they are, the criminal negative energy more so of the religious dogmas, political, and these so-called billionaire boys club are attempting to grab a hold of as much as they can so that they can use us as their commodities, and not to mention do this, there's a formula that's working, that has worked for decades. But what these so-called know-it-all in this criminal negative energy are not considering at all, they all believe that artificial intelligence is working on their behalf. Well, they're going to get a rude awakening. And hey, that's a consequence too. I told you, look at artificial intelligence, if you choose to, as a consequence. And then you want to back it up and say, well, why was this type of technology introduced? And then you'll probably figure it out if you're thinking for yourself. But nobody has to know. And that's why you have to, as you are reconstructing yourself, you have to take these things in a silent revolution type movement, whereas no one has to know. Your sounds and tones will eventually resonate with people who are doing the same thing. And then you're going to come together, because until it comes together collectively, it's not going to work. There's no such thing as one hero. There's no such thing as heroes anyway. They're taking, one person taking on that. People have lost their lives under the guise of believing they were heroes. Okay? No. This has to be done collectively, and it will. We'll eventually start resonating a little bit more together as time goes by. Quickly, though. Quickly now than ever before in the history of this planet. Okay? And our energy pulsates in such a way which causes that to happen. Okay? So whether you are strictly criminal or strictly non-criminal, you're gonna come together, as they say. When you come together, are you gonna reason together as well? Some of us will. So that's why I do things. I'm not discouraged at all whether people view my videos, like my videos, follow me, because that's irrelevant. That's the best distraction ever created, was to give you this illusion that people are following you and liking you. No one understood what was the nuance going on behind the scenes. Okay? And how people, there are certain elements that are always paying attention to us, listening to us. And they wait until, so when you are eyed, when you are the bait of being targeted, first they allow other things, they allow other entities to stir things up, and then it starts with what you're dependent on. So that's why people go after your job. They go after this or that and the other, so that they can get you isolated. And once you're isolated, that's when they can pound it. But now there's too many people that this is happening to, where you're being targeted, where they can necessarily do this without being exposed. And so that's why 2025 was the year of exposure, in my opinion. These fake personas got exposed. The curtain got open. The veil was lifted. And we saw who was behind the scenes, working that, those fake personas behind the scenes. Whereas, they thought they were the experts and everything. They thought they knew it all. And, and again, artificial intelligence is doing that. Why? Because artificial intelligence is the consequence. Okay? Our overpopulation is a consequence of why there's this rift between the biological man and biological woman, regardless of their gender and how they identify. A lot of people throw their genders in there. They throw, they'll throw it in there as as this means of confusing you even more. And then they'll throw in their identities to do the same thing. You have to multitask with this deconstruction, reconstruction. You have to multitask. You need to be able to be grounded and figure out what's coming at you, because it's coming at us. Boy, I pay attention, and I can pick up this wave of how they're attempting to contain people, with how the news is dispersed, and what type of content is, forced upon you. Like, I get content from people that I'm not even following. That's why I say I know it's irrelevant of the followers. And then some people that I'm following, I get no content from them. But they are putting out content. You understand what I mean? So don't focus on the following. Sometimes I mistakenly just follow people because I like what I hear. But as soon as I do that, I don't hear from them ever again. Unless they come up months later and they've already put out great content. So my point is, keep putting out the content. Okay, they're going to fuck with your followers and your likes. People ought to have known that. That happened a week or so ago where they claimed that they were doing upgrades. And people lost millions and millions of followers and likes and all this kind of stuff. And they say, oh, we're just letting the algorithm do this. It's bullshit. It's being exposed. Pay attention. It's being exposed. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right now with the consequences. I'm not going to just talk about sexuality, but we are. Identities, we are. Because that's a way to continue to distract us, continue to divide us, and more importantly and sadly, confuse us. Again, this is number 17, February 2nd, 2026. And trust me, I will be back.